afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Foreign Service Institute's Mabini Dialogue. My name is Andy, and I will be your MC for this afternoon. Today's Mabini Dialogue aims to discuss the refugee observations on the refugee crisis. But first, allow me to give a proper introduction to our speaker and our discussant today. Attorney Mabini Suarez holds the position of State Counsel at the Department of Justice. He is also designated as a member of the Member and Protection Officer of the DOJ Refugees and Stateless Persons Protections Unit, which is mandated under DOJ Department Circular Number 58, 2012, to make status determination of refugee and statelessness applications. The said circular was read live the provisions of the 1951 UN Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol and the 1954 UN Stateless Conventions, with which the Philippines is a party thereof. In his exposure on the refugee and statelessness work, Attorney Suarez has participated in an observation mission on the refugee framework and mechanisms in New Zealand and training on country of origin information in Jakarta. He is also tapped as a resource person and lecturer on the subject in several trainings on the Public Authorities Office, Immigration Border Control Officers, and the Ateneo Human Rights Center's paralegal involved in the Person of Indonesian Descent project in Mindanao. He also spoke on the matter during the programming of Statelessness workshop in Bangkok 2016 and in the 8th National Workshop on Civil Registration in Iloilo. Recently, Attorney Suarez was granted a scholarship in his participation to the 2016 Statelessness Summer Course in Tilburg University, the Netherlands. Prior to his employment in DOJ, Attorney Suarez was a trial lawyer in a private law firm, a court attorney at the Court of Appeals, and a municipal administrator in a local government. He obtained his A.B. Political Science degree at the University of San Carlos and finished law at the University of San Jose de Coletos. And as for our discussant, Professor Bayan Atta Mohamed Hagos earned his BA in English from the University of Asmara, Eritrea, and MA in Journalism and PhD in Communication, both from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He taught at the English department in the University of Asmara. Upon his return to Eritrea from his MA studies in the Philippines, he founded the Department of Journalism in his university and headed it from 1996 to 1998. Currently, he is an associate professor at the University of Santo Tomas Graduate School, teaching globalization and political economy of communication and mass media. Professor Hagos applied for asylum in the Philippines in October 2013 and was granted refugee status by the Department of Justice in September 2014. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to our speakers.
Actually, I was just a pitch in with my Chief State Counsel for today's activity. He is supposed to be the expert, being the head of the Refugees and Stateless Persons Protection Unit of the Department of Justice. For unforeseen reasons, being a Boy Scout himself, I was ready and assumed the responsibility for today's activity. If only I could move for a resetting, just like in the courts, being a pitch-in lawyer, I can't do so. This has to be scheduled for today's activity. So, I will start my presentation with a brief history of, I call the 9 waves of refugees who landed on Philippine soil. The overall topic is about our government, the Philippine government's policy on the protection of refugees and stateless persons. So just be guided with this slide. So the first wave of refugees reportedly came into the country, the White Russians, in 1923. Who understand what is these White Russians? Meron bang Black Russians? No? This is not the White Russian cocktail that you may know, one of the famous cocktail recipes in the world. These White Russians are the anti-communist Russians who fought the Bolsheviks, the communists of Vladimir Lenin in the Bolshevik Revolution in the Russia, formerly the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic in 1923. So that's the first wave. Actually, we sought information from the UNHCR on some figures on the actual figures as to these white Russians who actually came into the country. But we don't have a figure yet so far. But this is part of their reporting that's been reported based on also of some historians and reports, and from the UNHCR representative himself reported that the arrival of this first wave of refugees in the country, the white Russians. Then between 1934 to 1940, we have the second wave of refugees who came into the Philippines. This is very popular. The Jewish refugees who were fleeing from the Nazi persecution in Europe during the time of Hitler. So there were about 1,200 refugees who came into the country. And during this time, they were accommodated by, who was the president at this time, 1940? The first Philippine Commonwealth president, Manuel L. Quezon. So the arrivals of these refugees were made through the efforts of the Frieder brothers. They were American Jewish who were having business in the country through the interplay, through a mechanism which is the game of poker, because former President Quezon is a poker player. Then Colonel Dwight Eisenhower during that time was a poker buddy of President Quezon, and then Paul McNutt, also an American representative in the country during that time, was a poker player. And the Frieder brothers took advantage of this opportunity to convince President Quezon on the restless situation of refugees in Jewish refugees in Europe because of the Nazi persecution that they accommodated into the country. Actually, some Jewish refugees attempted, prior to their coming to the Philippines, they attempted to land in Cuba, but they were rejected. They went to Florida, the United States, they were also rejected. And finally, they found home in the Philippines. Then we have the third wave of refugees from China during the Japanese War in China, during World War II. Unfortunately, we don't have yet an accurate figure on this, but it is also part of, it has been reported and also in the files of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. So the fourth wave involved the third wave of refugees were the Spanish Republicans in 1939 during the Spanish Civil War. And then we have the fourth wave of refugees from China. And then in 1947, we have the second wave of white Russians coming to the Philippines again. This time, there were a greater number of 6,000 refugees who arrived in the Philippine soil in 1949, particularly in the island of Tubabao in Guiuan, Eastern Samar. So they stayed there for almost 3 years, from 1949 to 1951. These white Russians actually fled from Russia to China. And then when China during that time was about to be taken over by the Maoist Revolutionary Army, so since white Russians are anti-communist, they feared again for their lives and decided to flee China and come here in the Philippines. So, Tubabao Island actually is the biggest refugee camp in the Philippine history of offering asylum. The arrival of these White Russians, the second wave, were also facilitated by the predecessor of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the so-called IRO, International Refugee Organization. So ito yung predecessor ng UNHCR, which was created in April 20, 1946 by the UN to address refugee crisis during the World War II. And then the next wave of refugees arrived. Well, the second wave of refugees was during the time of the presidency of 1947. I was the president. Elpidio Quirino. So Elpidio Quirino that time. And then the next wave of refugees are also popular, the Vietnamese refugees. Yung mga boat people, they arrived between 1975 to 1992 during the end of the Vietnam War. So the refugee camps were established in Morong, Bataan, and Puerto Princesa. In fact, they have a village there in Puerto Princesa called Vietville Village, which was built by Catholic bishops. And then after the Vietnamese refugees, we have the Iranian refugees and the Philippine surplus. So what do you mean by refugees surplus? It's a technical term in refugee law and legal instruments. It means that the person, when he leave his country of origin, was not yet a refugee during that time. But after his departure, circumstances or events happening in this country make him qualify to become a refugee. So, for example, he can no longer return to his country because his religious faith or his clan has been persecuted by the government in his country. He may apply for asylum in his present country of residence. So, when he left his country of origin, he is not a refugee yet. He cannot qualify, but outside of his stay in his country of origin, events are happening which will make him qualify with the definition of refugee under the convention, which I will explain a little bit later. So, Iranian refugees, 1979. Do you know that the first recognized refugee in the Philippines, who was granted Philippine citizenship, was an Iranian national by the name of Buet Bahdo. He was recognized by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in 1981 as a mandate refugee. Those recognized by UNHCR, so-called mandate refugees. In 1981, and he applied for naturalization. He was married to a Filipina here when he arrived in 1970. He left Iran in 1979 and came to the Philippines. He married a Filipina and engaged into the real estate and construction business. He was a businessman, and he applied for naturalization. And in September 18, 2006, he was naturalized as a Filipino citizen, the first refugee who became a Filipino citizen. And then 1980 to 1994, the eighth wave of refugees are the Indo-Chinese refugees in transit to the Philippines. This was the result of the change of regime that was happening in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And then finally, the last wave was in 2000 by the refugees identified as Timorese, which made a right to self-determination, claiming themselves as refugees when they were here in the country. So we have here some photos of reported refugees in the Philippines. These photos are provided by UNHCR actually. This was taken in Bolinao, Pangasinan. In 1923 in Tapanday. So this these were the Jewish refugees. With the Frieder, with Mr. and Mrs. Frieder, the one who facilitated the arrival of the Jewish refugees who were fleeing persecution from fleeing Nazi persecution in Europe. So if you're familiar with the photo below, that's a poker game above. The photos below, to the extreme right. If you know him, he's President Quezon. The center guy sitting with a big bag is Colonel Dwight Eisenhower. Then Paul McNutt on the left side, beside Eisenhower. So that's the mechanism utilized by the Frieder brothers to convince President Quezon to accept Jewish refugees into the country. President Manila Quezon. This is a documentary, a film documentary entitled Rescue in the Philippines. Refugees from the Holocaust. This involved the Jewish refugees who fled persecution from Europe. And these are the East Timorese refugees on board a ferry in Winnie, West Timor. Okay, so I've been talking about refugees. What do you mean, what do you understand by a refugee? So that is the technical definition of a refugee under the 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees, which was adopted by our circular, DC number 58. So a person who, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion, is outside the country of his nationality and is unable or, owing to such fear, is unwilling to avail himself of the protection of that country. You can say the elements of one to be recognized as a refugee. He is a person, but in legal parlance, a person is a natural and juridical person. Does it cover juridical person? Only natural persons. Yung may laman, tao. A corporation is a juridical person. It refers only to human beings who has a fear of persecution. There is fear. The fear is about persecution. It's not only that, it should be well-founded. Considering the well-foundedness of that fear, you have the criteria of objective fear and subjective fear. Actually, on this definition alone, take 30 minutes for a lecture on this, the elements and the citations and cases. But due to limited time, we will just in brief discuss the elements of the definition. The grounds for the persecution must be the race of that person, his religion, his nationality, his membership in a particular social group. For example, the LGBT. There are some Muslim countries who consider LGBT group as membership in an LGBT group as a crime and punish it with harshly. And political opinion. Of course, if you are taking a stance against instituted governments in a particular country or against it, some governments are persecuting those opposition. That's also another ground. You are outside the country of nationality. So this is the sometimes the misnomer of our local media. Mapagkamalan yung refugee saka IDP. If you are familiar with an IDP, an internally displaced person, you cannot be a refugee within your own country. You must travel, you must cross an internationally recognized border. No? Outside, you must be outside your country of origin. So you cannot be a refugee within your own country. So our internally displaced persons, as a result of natural or man-made disasters like earthquakes in Bohol, in Zamboanga Seeds, now in Marawi, they are bakwets, they are IDPs, they are not refugees. So that's the distinction. So you know now. In some countries, the media are telling interchangeably that the evacuees are refugees. They are not. They are IDPs. And they are unable, or because of that fear, they are not willing to avail of the protection of their country. So that's the essential elements of refugee. So what are the legal frameworks in the Philippines on refugees? So we have the Philippine Immigration Act of 1940, and prior to the adoption of the 1951 Refugee Convention, the Immigration Act has certain provision towards the protection of refugees and stateless persons. The accession to the 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees and its 1967 Protocol in 1981, yung mga legal basis natin on our refugee mechanism. The Family Code of the Philippines, Article 21, which provides that stateless persons or refugees, in lieu of the certificate of legal capacity, the contract marriage, kung nag-asawa yung foreigners, they are required to secure that such documentation. But if you are a refugee or a stateless person, all you have to do is to submit an affidavit stating the circumstances showing the capacity to contract marriage. We also have the Philippine Passport Act of 1996, Year 40, no? RA 39, Section 13, Paragraph E, which provides that a refugee granted such status asylum in the Philippines may be issued only a travel document in lieu of a passport. Okay? Yan ang ini-issue sa kanila. Then we have Department of Justice, DOJ Order Number 94, which created, prior to RSVP, we call it Refugee Processing Unit in 1998, Refugee Processing Unit. But now, Refugees and Stateless Persons Protection Unit, RSVPU. It now includes stateless persons or applications for statelessness. Then we have NSO, Memorandum Circular Number 2004-01, Children in Need of Special Protection, was adopted in 2004. Includes refugee children in the list of children in need of special protection and reference to birth registration. We also have a MOA, Memorandum of Agreement, among the Government of the Philippines, UNHCR, and the International Organization for Migration concerning the transit of refugees, signed in 2009. The MOA addresses the challenges of emergency situations of mandate refugees. Mandate refugees are those recognized by UNHCR who are under threat of reforma. Reforma means deportation or return to their country of origin, or in need of international protection and have to transit to another country pending the processing of their onward resettlement to a third country. So they are refugees actually coming to the Philippines temporarily, in transit only, and finally resettled to another country of their choice. Okay, so that's the emergency transit mechanism, ETM. DOJ Circular even including the judiciary. We are in the process of finalizing the terms of reference on the protection of refugees, asylum seekers, and other persons of concern, which will be later on translated into a legal framework. It could be through an executive order signed by the President or merely a memorandum of agreement. So through the initiative of the DLJ RSVPU, we also have faith-based organizations and the academe. We're also tapped in providing complementary support to refugees, asylum seekers, and stateless persons. So of course, we maintain our constant collaboration with UNHR in the implementation of the provisions of the Convention and finding durable solutions for refugees, recognized refugees who are already in the country. So what is the role of the RSVPU? To facilitate the identification, determination, and protection of refugees and stateless persons under the terms of the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol and the 1954 Stateless Convention. We also assist and coordinate with government agencies, NGOs, and the UNHCR in facilitating the means and measures to reduce and prevent statelessness and find durable solutions for refugees and stateless persons. Among the familiar durable solutions is, of course, naturalization. So, pag naging Filipino na yung refugee, that's the end of it. He has now his own nationality. He will enjoy rights and privileges as Filipino national. Then, we have these basic principles, basic guiding principles in our work of determination of refugees and stateless persons. We have one, the preservation and promotion of family unity, non-detention on account of being stateless or refugee. This preservation and promotion of family unity, for example, the primary principal applicant is the father, and he is recognized, we recognize him as a refugee. Later on, the spouse or the wife will apply, and the children, we can recognize the spouse and the children based on this principle of family unity. So, sama-sama na sila. Non-detention on account of being stateless or refugee. So, on these grounds, you cannot detain a refugee or stateless person. But if he violates our laws, he commits a crime, of course, there is no exception. If we can arrest and charge our own nationals, the same also applies to foreign nationals. So on this ground only, you cannot detain them if they are stateless or refugees. Then, non-deprivation of refugee or stateless status and non-discrimination in the application of the conventions on account of race, religion, membership, the same grounds in the convention. Membership in particular social group, political opinion, or country of origin. So non-deprivation. The non-expulsion of an applicant and or his or her dependents or a refugee to a country where there are valid reasons to believe that his or her life or freedom would be threatened on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. This is the so-called principle of non-refoulement. So you cannot expel, you cannot deport that refugee to his country of origin if there is a valid reason that he will be persecuted in his country, including his wife, his immediate dependents. Non-expulsion. And then, non-punishment on account of illegal entry or presence in the country, provided that the applicant presents himself or herself without delay to the authorities, good cause for the illegal entry or presence. So you cannot punish them on account only of illegal entry. We also have cases of asylum seekers who are apprehended at the airports and violated our immigration laws. They subsequently filed applications for asylum or refugee recognition. Albeit they are detained, but we call that accelerated status determination of their application. So we fast track, because if you, of course, they violated immigration law. For example, they have a falsity, tampered or fake passport. It's a violation of immigration laws. They are detained. And then they file their application. We call that an accelerated determination. We fast track to determine if really they are qualified to be recognized as refugees. Then we have these demographics of refugees in the country. We have 395 refugees so far, and 244 asylum seekers, those with pending applications with the RSVP as of December 2016. So if you can see, the top 3 countries of nationality of refugees, we have coming from Iran, 57, then Syrian, Arab Republic 50, and Palestine 44. Top 3 countries of nationality of asylum seekers: Pakistan 35, Syrian, Arab Republic 30, Somalia 17. So much for refugees. We proceed to stateless persons. So what are these stateless persons? The stateless person has also a technical meaning defined in the 1954 Stateless Convention, which is adopted also in our DC 58. Is a person who is not considered as a national by any state under the operation of its law. So you are not a national in any other state applying each state's nationality law. So you are considered stateless. What are the legal framework? What the legal basis in the Philippines on the matter of statelessness? So we have more or less the same legal framework with refugees. You can see the Immigration Act. The difference with only in the convention, the 1954 Stateless Convention. We also have the Family Code, but we have jurisprudence. We have cases decided by the Supreme Court involving statelessness. If you can see, our Immigration Act was passed in 1940, but mind you, as early as 1939, our Supreme Court has already decided a leading case. That is the petition of Gloria Valdillo for naturalization as a Filipino citizen. Okay? That case involves the issue of statelessness, where the Supreme Court ruled that a Filipino woman does not lose her citizenship by marrying a foreigner whose national laws do not allow her to acquire her husband's nationality. So by marrying the foreign national, that the supposedly the wife acquires the nationality of the foreigner husband, but the nationality law of the foreign husband does not provide so. So this is under the old constitution. So what is the nationality now of the wife? He cannot acquire the nationality law of the husband, and he lost his present nationality by marrying that foreigner. So it appears that she will be stateless. She has no nationality. So the court says that the evident purpose of this ruling is to prevent such a condition of statelessness in a Filipino woman married to an alien whose national laws do not allow her to acquire her husband's nationality. So this is to protect our Filipino women who marries foreigners, foreign nationals. Then we have this case in 1948, Kukuritskin versus the Solgen. The Supreme Court rendered a judgment which recognized a native-born Russian as a stateless refugee. I will not inimatagal pa tayo medyo hahaba ang discussion. But it's the essence of the rulings of the Supreme Court. So, in 1955, the Philippines signed the 1954 Stateless Convention. In 2011, the Philippines ratified the 1954 Stateless Convention. And our country became the first in Southeast Asia to ratify the 1954 Stateless Convention. We also have laws and national policies benefiting refugees which also cover stateless persons. So more or less pare-pareho lang naman yung protection nila for refugees and stateless persons. If you will examine the provisions of the twin conventions, the 1951 and the 1954. We also have a national action plan to end statelessness, which was developed by our government in 2015. It's an ongoing undertaking today. So as you can see, the frameworks, the legal frameworks, laws and jurisprudence are more or less the same, except with some citations of court cases. So what are the obligations and rights of refugees and stateless persons? So every refugee and stateless person have duties to the country in which he finds himself. It's required in particular that he conform to its laws and regulations as well as to measures taken for the maintenance of public order. In essence, refugees and stateless persons need to abide the same with Philippine nationals on our own domestic laws, rules, and regulations. So we have, just go over with the slide, obligations of refugees and stateless persons, access to socioeconomic rights. Article 17 of the 1951 Convention, the right to wage earning employment, also the same with the 1954 Stateless Convention. So, under Article 2 of the 1951 and 1954 Conventions, in Section 4 of our DC 58, every refugee or stateless person has duties to the country in which he finds himself, which require him to conform to its laws and regulations and measures taken for maintaining public order. Now, the right remains supported, this right, access to socioeconomic rights, the right remains supported by the continued implementation of Department, this Dole Order number 146-15, Series of 2015. This is the revised rules for the issuance of employment permits to foreign nationals, which reaffirms the right to access employment through issuance of permits of refugees and providing access to work permits for stateless persons. Since 2013, the Bureau of Immigration provides a temporary work permits from persons with pending applications for recognition of refugee and stateless status upon endorsement from DOJ RSVP. We have also Dole Advisory number 2, Series of 2016, which laid down the clarifications on certain provisions in Dole Order number 146-15, exempting refugees from the labor market test or publication requirement and payment of publication fee pursuant to Article 17, Paragraph 2 of the 51 Refugee and the 51 Refugee Convention. So di na pinapabayad yung mga refugees natin on the publication fee with Dole. Then Article 18 speaks about the right to self-employment. you have a DTI internal memo dated November 25, 2016. It extends assistance to refugees and other persons of concern in DTI negosyo centers, which facilitates access to services and putting up micro and medium small enterprises. So we are still in the process of discussing in the Interagency Steering Committee access to SSS and PhilHealth programs, our SSS and PhilHealth programs for refugees, stateless persons, and persons of concern. And then access to public services. The DOH, Department of Health, provides quality health services regardless of nationality. This is adopting the principle of universal health care. We also have access to free public education. But if you observe the access to free public education is only limited to elementary education. Then access to judicial and administrative citizenship procedures. Refugees and stateless persons who met relevant qualifications are also able to access judicial and administrative citizenship procedures, depending on their qualifications or the requirements provided under RA 9139 for admin naturalization and or Commonwealth Act number 473 for judicial naturalization. So the case is the Iranian, it was judicial naturalization, the same with Carbasi also in 2015. The administrative naturalization is handled by the Office of the Solicitor General through the Special Committee on Naturalization. Then access to courts and legal assistance and counseling representation. I mentioned already the MOA between UNHCR and the Public Attorney's Office to provide free legal assistance to refugees and stateless persons, even those asylum seekers. This is in furtherance to the implementation of the government's obligations under Article 16 of the 51 of the Twin Conventions. The MOU outlines the framework of cooperation with regard to access to free legal assistance, counseling, and representation of refugees, stateless persons, and asylum applicants, and those seeking recognition of refugee and stateless status in all stages of the proceedings with the administrative, judicial, or quasi-judicial. There is also enjoyment of the freedom of religion and the freedom of movement. These are guaranteed rights under the conventions. As regards the freedom of movement, refugees and stateless persons in the country have the right to exercise such freedom and even allowed to travel outside the country, provided they comply with documentary requirements in accordance with the immigration laws, and also with the Philippine Passport Act, which has the provision for the issuance of a convention travel documents for refugees and stateless persons. Then access to documentation or identity papers. Refugees are issued immigration documents under the provision of our immigration law and travel document under the Philippine Passport Act. Now, briefly, we have also the so-called populations at risk of statelessness. What are these populations? Who are they? In a series of roundtable discussions, way back in 2010, 2011, the following groups of population were identified as at risk of statelessness. These 5 groups. unregistered children in the Philippines, foundlings, children of Filipino descent in migration situations, those particularly children born out of wedlock in Japan, Saudi Arabia, and Sabah. Then you have the persons with Indonesian descent in southern Philippines and Mindanao, who came from the Maruri and Sangir Islands of Indonesia, and then some of the Laut, or the popularly known as Badjaus, or the boat people. Foundlings should be read in line with the Grace Poe ruling on foundlings. No? Essentially, we're talking about birth documentation for unregistered children and foundlings. And the absence of birth certificates under our laws, it will be difficult to determine the nationality of the children. Adapting our use sanguinis principle, or the acquisition of citizenship based on the blood relations with the parents. So if you don't have a birth certificate, how can you tell the nationality of the child? So among the 5 groups, we tackled, we addressed first the issue of the PID. We call this PID, the persons of Indonesian descent, the 4th group in Mindanao. Because there was a mutual interest between the Philippine and Indonesian governments to address the issues of this PID. So the legal framework was the Joint Committee on Bilateral Cooperation between Philippines and Indonesia in 2014, and the Joint Declaration of Indonesia and Philippines on the protection of migrants and migrant workers in 2015. To proceed with the PID project, we harp on these 2 agreements as the legal framework, as our legal framework. So that's the essence of the JCPC as regards addressing the issue of statelessness, or the issue of the risk of statelessness of this PID in Mindanao. The ministers agreed on the importance of determining the legal status of Indonesian descendants in southern Philippines with a view to providing better legal protection. In this regard, Philippines will endeavor to assist Indonesia in these efforts. So efforts to reduce the incidence of statelessness was first undertaken by the government for the PID in view of the bilateral cooperation between Philippines and Indonesia and the existence of the 2 legal frameworks I mentioned. So in 2012, both governments conducted a mapping and identified more than 6,000 PIDs in Mindanao who were of undetermined citizenship. So given their status, these persons face a lot of challenges, more specifically in terms of access to their rights and privileges. So as a result of the JCBC, the Joint Commission for Bilateral Cooperation in Jakarta, both countries agreed on the importance. I mentioned it already. So after the 4 phases of registration, after the mapping of this PID, we conducted a registration of this PID. Mapping is we identify their locations. So we went to Mindanao and locate the areas of this PID in around 7 provinces in Mindanao. Then after that, after the mapping, we made the registration of this PID. The project is termed Registration and Confirmation of Nationality of PID. So we register and confirm whether these are really Indonesian nationals or indeed Filipino citizens. So after the registration, the project registered an actual number of 8,745 PIDs. Out of this number, 5,208 were provided solutions, meaning they were determined as Filipinos or Indonesian citizens as of March 31, 2017. So that's what I'm saying. So the municipalities, the LGUs of Glan, Sarangani, and Tupi in South Cotabato have assisted us in this project by passing resolutions waiving the fees, the required fees for the late birth registration and the clerical correction of their birth certificates. We found that most of these PIDs do not have birth certificates. So what are their nationality if you have no birth certificate to show? They have no passports. They have no alien certificate of registrations, ACR, issued by our immigration. So the remedy is they will apply for late registration of birth, but there is a payment. Some of these PIDs have birth certificates, but there are errors in the entries. For example, they put the nationality of their parents as Filipinos, where in fact they are really Indonesians. And during our registration and interviews with the PAO lawyers, the PAO with us, also the immigration, for the biometrics and getting the information, personal circumstances of the PID, they said that, sir, the truth is that we were afraid to say that we are Indonesian because we might be deported. We might be charged. So we just indicate they're Filipinos. So we need to rectify, because the Indonesian government is also, this is a parallel project with the Indonesian government. And they are also determining who their nationals are among these PIDs. So, in fact, you said you saw the figures. So that's it. Out of the 8,745, we have 60% already. We granted durable solutions, which is a confirmation of the nationality of these PIDs as Filipinos or Indonesians, or in some cases dual citizen. Limited dual citizen, because under Indonesian law, they prefer that you stick to one Indonesian and one nationality. So limited dual in the sense that during the minority of that child where they determined to be in possession of dual nationality, after reaching the age of 18 or 19 and within 3 years, they have to choose their nationality. So they have limited dual citizenship as Indonesian and Filipino at the same time. So with 60%, as you can see, 2,425 were determined as clearly Indonesians. 2012, clearly Filipinos. 274 dual citizens. 136 availed of late birth registration because they don't have birth certificates. 16 for admin corrections, meaning to say, the corrections in the errors of the birth certificates and the entries shall only be made by the local civil registrar and not through the courts, no? Under the clerical error law. Then 8 cases need for judicial correction, so it must undergo judicial proceeding. Primarily on the issue of citizenship. When you change the citizenship of the parents, it really matters. Matters a lot. If you say that the parents are now Indonesians, so the child will follow under our principle jus sanguinis. The child is now Indonesian and not Filipino. So it needs judicial intervention. So what are our concerns? As you can see, we lack an independent budget for operations for now. Our RSVPO is only a unit within DOJ. It's not an office with a separate funding. So, UNHCR is also extending financial and logistical assistance to RSVP work. Conflation or the fusion between refugee and security threats. We tighten security measures which affects access to the asylum procedure in the country. Terrorism. So, an asylum seeker, we need the appropriate clearances from the immigration for the regulatory records and the NICA before we process for security measures. Scope of population at risk of statelessness still to be determined. Of the 5 groups, you only have the 4th group, the PIDs so far. But jobs are also many. See both people, Muslim Mindanao, the Visayas. Then capacity building for new protection officers not yet in place. We have also, actually we are only 18 members of the RSPPU. And this is to think that this is only a designation on our part, aside from regular work as State Council of the DOJ. So we're only 18, and we have influx also of asylum seekers already. And the downsizing of UNHCR Philippines. We learned that they are trimming down. UNHCR Philippines trimming down. I think only within this year. I just cannot confirm on their behalf. But they are streamlining its personnel, its office here in the country. So these are our legitimate and valid concerns. Then ways forward at last. Antok na kayo eh. Institutionalization of policies for the protection of refugees, including stateless persons in the Philippines, and strengthening the legal framework through the drafting of a refugee bill and facilitated naturalization bill. The first one essentially involves this interagency steering committee that we are still working on. We are finalizing the terms of reference on how various government agencies of the government, we are also tapping, well, for the interagency, it's only first government agencies on how each agency can accommodate legally and within their programs and budget concerns and issues involving refugees, stateless persons, and asylum seekers in the country. So it's still a work in progress, especially DOLI, TESDA, CHED, almost all of them, DSWD, Department of Health, kasi nagkakasakit din itong mga refugees. Gusto nila mag-PhilHealth to have their own savings, and they already have work in the country. They want to study, not only the free public elementary education guaranteed. They wanted to enroll in high school. They want to have a profession and study in college. Then the second ways forward is the passage of the separate refugee bill and facilitated naturalization bill, meaning expediting. The refugee bill, so far we only have DC-58, which is the mechanism implementing the provisions of the Refugee Convention and the Stateless Convention. We don't have, and of course our Immigration Act. That's why we have this Section 47B, visa issued for recognized refugees. No? It is based under our immigration law. Yun ang nakatatak sa nila, passport nila. And then facilitated naturalization bill to expedite the naturalization procedure. Alam naman natin sa courts talagang minimum of 5 years pag may kaso ka. And a naturalization case is no different from other cases that we have, depending also on the dockets of the court. So, minimum of 5 years, more than that, before one will be naturalized. So, we thank you for your listening. it's not much interesting, but I think for in your work, I think it's very relevant, very important. Uh, in fact, I mentioned, Andrea, the participation of the DFA through the UNIO. There was another unit who attended during the interagency. Consular affairs, I'm not sure. UNIO, maybe. But UNIO is a regular participant in the steering committee. Sometimes you're sending different representatives. And also same with other agencies, and they're asking, what's that? What they're talking about? And we have to explain again. So that's why also we're requesting during that group that there should be proper coordination, and who will be the representative or colleagues attending for purposes of continuity. Thank you. If you have questions.
I will just give a brief background of the country I come from so that you can have a contextualized understanding of why I have to leave the country. Now, if you look into the Freedom Index now, the last country coming is my country. For quite some time, North Korea used to be before Eritrea, but now North Korea excelled, so my country is the last. So you can have a grasp of the scope of the freedom in that country. But it's not also dictatorship. Many also attribute to the system as a dictatorship. With due respect, you as Filipinos, I lived in UP Diliman for 10 years. Marcos period is what is discussed as the most, the harshest. To me, in the present situation of my country, that is not, Marcos period is not only free, it is anarchic. Excessive freedom. This is to have the contrasting picture between the two settings. I'm not trying to diminish the Marcos period in the country. As a student of mass communication, I am well versed in the history of mass media in the country, and my professors were also living testimonies to how life was under that the Marcos period. But just to give few elements so that you can make your own conclusion. The country does not have a constitution. There is no legislative body to make law. The court is paralyzed. Now you can imagine how the country is run. The country is run by one man without any known structure. Because if you go to a department, like if you go to a minister may not dare say something on an issue where somebody who is at the lower level may have a say. So everybody checks everybody else because you don't know where the authority lies. So given that it's that one man and there is no known structure and every say has to come from him, militarily, politically, educationally, everything. In his latest interview, just last January, when he was asked of shortage of water in the capital city, he said, well, water does not go to where people are. People go to where water is. So you can imagine how perverted his outlook is. So he's practically destroying the country with full intent. Now, the capital city is a small, beautiful city that was built by Mussolini because Eritrea was under the Italians for 60 years. And all its development and foundation of modernization was also made by the Italians, followed by 10-year British rule, which also enhanced the modern education. So by 1950, by 1960, the country has very sound foundation for modernization. But now it's hardly possible to talk of the presence of anything in that country. And that's why, if you follow the news on boats capsizing in the Mediterranean, the leading number goes to Eritreans. And now people are living as young as 7 years old because they don't see any prospect. Okay. One element is we have a military service. I have a younger brother who was taken to the military when he was 17. Now he is 37. He was in the military for 20 years. No promotion, no salary, no anything, no anything. So the younger ones see no hope, so they just cross the border, go anywhere else. That's why they risk a lot. At the same time, there is an order by the state to shoot anybody who tries to cross the border illegally. They just shoot them. There is no attempt to try to capture them, whatever. So this is the brutal environment of that country. So I was, personally, after I graduated from the state university, that he now closed. So now Eritrea is the only country without any university in 2017. And I became graduate assistant in the same university. Then I was sent for masters. I came to Diliman. After I finished, I went back. So they said we need Department of Journalism. So I was the university president is planning into expanding the university, whereas the president of the country is contemplating on closing and squeezing the educational institutions of the country. So he came and declared it, and nobody can talk to him because there is no parliament, there is no legislative body, there is no anything else. What he says, it goes. So still, since I came here to do my studies and go back, I was still insistent on going back. But at the end of, finally, I have contacts with my friends. And my friends, they will tell me, where is Mr. X? Oh, he took asylum in Finland. Where is Mr. Y? Oh, he took asylum in Norway. Almost everybody. Finally, one of my junior staff, who has 4 female children, who is, we call her as Marino, meaning like we call Manilena, people who are born, grew in Manila, who do not know rural life, typical of city. She's one of them. No politics, no anything. She has to take all her 4 children, 4 female children, cross the border to Sudan, and from Sudan to go to UK. That was to me very shocking because this, if it were someone else who had political leaning, I would have thought maybe he clashed here or there. But in her case, she has no business with anything except living her life. Socialist is good, but not into politics. Now in her interview with the United Nations, because my president is under investigation for crime against humanity, she testified that in the university there are rules and there are offices inside the university that monitor. These are intelligence officers. And one of the rules is that she has, a lecturer has to give a handout, 1 piece for 2 students. So she said, she's teaching English, when she gave 1 piece for 2, she felt that there was some inconvenience. So she went out of the campus and then she reproduced more from her own, brought it back and gave 1 each. So she said she was asked to report to an office. She went to the office and she was asked why she did that. And she told them, it was on my own expense. No, that's not what's important. What's important is you respect the rule. The rule is you give 1 copy for 2 students, but you gave 1 copy each. She tried to explain by saying that but I paid for it. No, that's not important. What's important is you are violating the law. So to her also, that was the last time she has to decide that she cannot stay there anymore. So she left. So, and lastly, one of my friends called me and he said, what is your visa? He's not supposed to know about my visa unless it is talked about. And my visa was from Department of Foreign Affairs as government official student, which is 9E. That's the time I felt that maybe I am a subject, because they can revoke that. So, summing up, I cannot tell you the whole, it's a long story of similar events. So finally I said, then I have to do something about it, and that is, I have to look for protection. That's why I finished my PhD on October 9, 2012, but still I waited, hoping that I will have a way out until October 2013. But when I saw that there is no hope and I can't go nowhere else, then I applied to the Department of Justice, and then at the end of 2014, I was granted the asylum. Now, what is it to be a refugee? I have two pictures. One is when I was granted the refugee, I was relieved because there will no any way out where I can be sent back home. Because that was my primary concern. I did not think about what will happen after. How will I live? What will I do? That was not in me. So I was relieved. But now when I join some refugees in discussion, I have a different feeling. Like, is it different to be a refugee from ordinary human being? Because some of them, when they discuss, their complaint goes as far as saying, we are human beings. We have needs, we have this and that. So I ask myself, is it that I have not embraced the environment of being a refugee, or that these people have a different sense of being a refugee? Because some of the expressions are a bit disturbing. So I have these two faces to me. But personally, given that I was well adapted with my friends, colleagues, whatever, I did not have any problem. I don't feel any different also, except I feel more secure. I sleep at night, I work daytime, I will at ease. If I am full, okay. If I am hungry, it's always okay, because there is nothing in my mind that disturbs me. Unlike before, I was very much affected because I was thinking, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I don't do this? So to me, the fact that I was granted the refugee status, personally, it was a resolution and start new look at life. And of course, I was close to my professors, to my classmates, so some of my professors also were asking me, oh, we can't give you UPD demand citizenship because you have been here for long and you are very close to us. So they were asking me, consider that. As far as UPD demand citizenship, we can sign it, and within UPD demand, you can make business, you can teach, you can do this. So that to me was also consoling, because I used to feel, well, if the worst comes, at least I have people whom I can lean on. And they were repeatedly asking me, have you decided? I tell them, since I'm assured, I don't have to rush to decide. So this is to say that I never had any problem of adjustment, except at the beginning. When I came as a student, I had one problem. Maybe it's not easy for you to grasp. I did not grow in a democratic society. Until my high school, the king of Ethiopia was the ruler, so it was monarchy. Later came a military group with socialist orientation, very much monolithic, but there was some space to discuss administrative matters and things. But ideologically, you have to say socialism is right, the party is right, and the president is right. Beyond that, there was some. So when I came here, This was part of my mental setup. So when I took one journalism course, I write assignments, submit. So on one occasion, my professor, he told me, can you come to the office? I said, okay, I went there. And he told me that, you are very good in making analysis, you develop concepts very well, but, he said, you close it suddenly. It does not follow the natural course to make an end of. I was shocked that he was able to learn that. Given that my background is to be cautious, to be suspicious, to be careful. This is my opinion. So I do write an analysis, I do write critical analysis. Then I say, what if the professor's orientation is contrary to this one? So somewhere I got it. But I was impressed by the fact that my professor was able to discover that, not in discussion, but in the paper. Then I confessed. I told him, yes, sir, I am not fan of the United States foreign policy, whatever. I have critical view on all those. And my view is, most of you, my professors, are pro. That's my view. So I told him, maybe he will fail me. So I said, I have to try it because that's in me, but I have to stop it also because maybe it's too much. Then he smiled and said, don't worry. My leaning is this way. Professor X is to the left. Professor Y is to the right. Professor X is very independent. Professor this has radical view on this. So he said, that was a turning point in my life. That's why also it was very easy for me to get closer to my professors and to my classmates, because as the seminars come, I used to see people clashing, but at the end, they greet each other. That's new to me, he said. Because during the discussion, I used to feel tense, only me. Nobody else. Everybody, some of them are even smiling. Only me, I say, oh, no, something will happen. At the end, he did this. Then I asked my classmates, I said, that guy is, you said is Marcos' son, Enrique's puppet, whatever, but you were listening attentively. They said, yes. I told them, I know his view, so I will not listen to him. No, they said. He is presenting his view, we have to listen to him. That was a turning point for me, that I have to listen to all points of views. And my professor was the eye opener. He was the one who really paved the gate for me. Then I critically discussed everything, and then I told them, I do this here, but when I'm going back home, I have to reframe my mind. That's why now, after finishing my studies, it became absolutely difficult to go. Of course, I have the capacity to limit myself, but not to the extent it is there. If it were normal dictatorship, I can survive. But as it is now, no, because just 2 days ago, I heard a lady, an Eritrean lady, who fled, she was in Paris. She fled to Europe, and she said, now you get bread. When you get bread, it's not in store. It is the government, it has centers. So you fall in line early morning at 5. So sometimes she said the bread gets smaller. And when we get it, we cannot discuss it. Because if they discuss, they say, oh, the bread is smaller than it used to be, they will be in trouble. So she said, we show to each other by squeezing it or making fun of it, meaning it is smaller. And this is on the ordinary. So this is the scope. So now for me, after having been living long life in Upidiliman, it became absolutely impossible to go there and then do. Because there is no private media, all private media are closed. All journalists were taken to prison 15 years ago, and nobody knows their whereabouts. There is a lot of discussion on one because he is dual citizenship, Swedish and Eritrean. So the Swedish make noise, so it's talked about the rest, nobody. And everything is closed, so what you have to listen to the national media, where the center is the president. And if I go back, all that I have to do is serve that institution, which to my conscience, at least as of now, is very difficult to accept. So that was the drive, and then I got granted. Now, as a refugee, how is it to be a refugee in the Philippines? Sometimes it depends, but there are also few things. For example, the process of naturalization, because before the Philippine government took over, I was told that the Philippine government took over in 1998. Before that, resettlement was open. People can go to Australia, whatever. But now, the end point is naturalization. And I attended on May 24 a presentation on the process of naturalization. It seems to be improving with clarity and details. So if somebody wants to be naturalized, they are very simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you meet those, you get in, process, you can be naturalized. But there is a span of time between the time you become a refugee and the time you can apply for naturalization. I was told it's 10 years, but there are also considerations. Personally, for me, I was told, okay, the time you spend here as a student will be taken as a time you stay here, will be included. So it means I meet that. And the other requirements, 2-year teaching. So I meet. All what I need is to elevate my Tagalog skill into a conversational. Although Tagalog I have is for survival. I can go from every corner to the other corner. I can go in, cross places. I can do the basics, but not conversational as such. So in that, I think it's with full clarity and very encouraging also. I have some comments and reservations on the employment issue, which attorney mentioned. For one, I see a clump of a refugee and a foreigner. To me, a refugee is no more foreigner. Once he is detached from his country, he is something like an adopted child of the country. So, to me, he has to be put in a different category and be treated in a different category. So when it comes to work, the immigration rule says, is a refugee entitled to work, to associations, whatever. I am a member of some communication and journalism associations, because it allows. But when it comes to work, it says you have to get a contract for the work, the institution, take it to the OJ, and then take it to Dole. The problem is, you go to many institutions, you tell them, I am a refugee. Unless by some miracle there is someone who knows about it, they look at each other. And then some who dare ask you will say, sir, what is that? Then you have to explain. Now if they find it vicious, yes, circular, going back, they will tell you, sir, can you come next time or next? That is a humble way of telling you, they cannot handle it because they have no idea. And the reason is very simple. What attorney mentioned about the steering committee is recent. For a long time, it was refugees were under UNHCR. And the UNHCR did not do anything to introduce a refugee to Philippine institutions. Now, the fact that it's recent, but it is a serious problem because many of the refugees, including myself, will have to work. Now it says, Dole can give you permit if you have one-year contract. But there are people also who can work, but not necessarily for 1 year. You can get 3 months work here, 6 months work, then what do you do? So this is a serious issue among many refugees. That's why when you talk about naturalization, some are very happy. Some will tell you, so how are we going to live until that day? Because there is a long period between now and the naturalization. So that element, I find it something that has to be looked into urgently. Besides, every refugee you ask will tell you that they are very happy with the Department of Justice, not because the attorney is here, but because if you go to the OJ, you ask what is within the scope of the OJ, it takes you 5 to 7 minutes. You go to the secretary will come out, what's this? She will get in and tell you, if it takes some time, can you come after lunch? This is the longest period. If not, you can wait 5-10 minutes to get your paper. So no refugee has any complaint on the services that the OJ gives. And myself also, I have been there. It's sometimes 2-3 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes. So with that, there is full satisfaction. With the process of naturalization, as far as I have seen, even in the last May 24 meeting, people were very. The first time I saw refugees ending a meeting with some kind of smiley face. But in most cases, the end of the meeting is something wretched, some kind of anger, some kind of questioning. But last time, I saw them very relieved, and I even asked some of them, how is it that today they don't see the old wretched faces? No, they said, this is good. If they implement this, if they do this, everybody was coming to us. So the only area of concern is the area of the employment. The procedure. Of course, the right is there. But the procedure, no, the right is there, but the procedure turns it into not becoming, not, how can I say? Yes, you are given, but you are not given. That's how it looks to me. Because you are given, so you say, okay, I will go to get a job. No, you have to go through this process, and that process is very, very difficult, very complex. So it looks like you are allowed to work, but you are not allowed to work. This is how I put it. Because the procedure has become a predicament. The procedure seems to be prevailing over the principle of allowing the refugee to work. Beyond that, I have been talking to many refugees. I did not come across any problem. Actually, when it comes to protection, many are happy because some of them had some problem with neighbors, whatever, and when they go to the OJ, they get the necessary guideline. But there is one problem also with some refugees. Some refugees are not used to processes. So if you tell them, okay, you will get it, but you have to go through this, some don't like it. They simply want it to go by order. So my guess is, if somebody comes from my country, he has the same understanding. He will want it done on the spot, because that's how it's done there. If you have the president, you can get a house by calling, give him that villa. So it's as simple as that. So if you come from there and they ask you here, you have to file it in the OJ, and then they will take it to the secretary and say, why all this? Just tell him and let him give me. So this effect is reflected in some of the refugees. So I try to tell them, this country operates systemically. There is a system. So if they tell me, oh, you defend them? No, I'm not defending them. But the process is also good for you. No, they say, oh, because you don't have the problem you are defending. So there is such a thing. This is also because of the background they come from. So if I adapt the way things work in my country, that's how I should have said. I said, why go to secretary, to vice, to deputy, whatever? You just sign it and give it to me, because that's how it works there. In my country, if you have a colonel in the military, you can get exit visa. What's the connection? Nowhere. But these are feared people. So the immigration officer in the say, who signed it? We will not look into who signed it. Okay. So if you adapt that, then you come here. Here it always takes time. So there is this mentality is part of the mentality among the refugees. So on the side of the refugees, that problem is there. And I guess it is helpful if the refugees are given also orientation after orientation, starting from the beginning. As soon as they are granted, it's good if they are given all the necessary orientations to how life will look like in the Philippines. But on the work process, work permit process, I emphasize that because I share that view because of its outcome on the ground. For the rest, you may ask questions. Thank you very much.